What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Over Analysis. Today we're talking about the Green Bay Packers, their fantasy relevant players, and whether or not we are targeting or fading them in our drafts this summer. At quarterback, Jordan Love doesn't really do a lot for me for fantasy. Love over the last 2 years has been a mid-range QB2, finishing as the QB15 and the QB17. Love's touchdown numbers have been in decline each of the last couple years, going from 32 in 2023 to 25 in 2024 to 23 last season. Love also doesn't add much in the rushing game. He's been below 200 rushing yards each of the last 2 seasons. Love's draft cost isn't bad right now. He goes as the QB18, and he's perfectly fine as a QB2 or a streaming option, but there are guys going in that range that I just prefer. Give me Jared Goff, give me Baker Mayfield, give me Tyler Shuck, all three of those guys easily over Jordan Love. For Jordan Love to exceed his ADP, he's going to have a spiked year with touchdowns, which he is capable of doing. We saw that back in 2023 when he went for over 30. But if he doesn't spike with touchdowns, if he doesn't put up the prolific passing numbers, then he's probably going to remain what he's been the last 2 seasons, which is a QB2. At running back, Josh Jacobs was off to a pretty good start last year before suffering knee and ankle injuries that really hampered him in the second half of the season. Jacobs, from week 11 on, just produced 2 games above 15 fantasy points. Jacobs this summer has also gotten himself into some off-field trouble, which could result in a suspension. That, combined with the way he finished the year last season, has lowered his price in drafts. And with that in mind, I think there's a really good chance for Jacobs to be a value this year. Currently, he's going as the RB16, which means you can take him a little outside the RB1 range. And the thing with Jacobs is, a lot of people are mostly concerned about the suspension issue, but think back to the way that the league has handled some of these suspensions for their high-profile players over the last few years. In the cases of both Alvin Kamara and Rashee Rice, the league didn't take action for more than a full year after both of their respective incidents occurred. So usually what happens with these situations, the league lets the legal process play out, and once that happens, then the league will impose a suspension of their own. So with Jacobs, if his situation doesn't get the full legal attention for over a year or until the season ends, then it could be another situation where there's no suspension at earliest until next season. And if that's the case, then at the RB16 price tag, you're getting a really good discount on a guy that's consistently produced RB1 numbers for the Packers. And the Packer running back room hasn't really changed much behind Jacobs. If anything, it's a little less deep now that Emmanuel Wilson is no longer on the team, now with Seattle. So really, there's no one there to challenge Josh Jacobs for touches. You have Marshawn Lloyd, who is a talented player, but he's never been able to stay healthy throughout his career. Chris Brooks, another guy who really just a replacement level player, nothing special there. So with Jacobs, if he's healthy, you know he's going to be featured heavily. He's going to get all the goal line work. The Packers love to run the ball in the red zone. Jacobs has averaged over a touchdown per game during his career with the Packers. So I absolutely would be taking advantage of the dip on Josh Jacobs right now. This is a guy that you're going to get at an RB2 price tag that could easily finish inside the top 12 at the position. So anytime you can get a guy that's going to outperform ADP like that, that's a value that you want to pursue. And then at wide receiver, in the last few years, I haven't had a lot of interest in this group, mainly because the Packers have just been rotating so many guys in and out that it was hard to really count on any of these guys to have a featured role in a given week. And the situation has gotten a little better this year. Dontavian Wicks is gone. He's now in Philadelphia. Romeo Doubs is gone. He's now a member of the Patriots. So that's 2 guys now completely out of this rotation. But I'm still not overly interested in this group as a whole, and I'll explain why. First guy we'll go over is Christian Watson. And with Watson, it's all about health and availability for him. So Watson over the last couple of years, just constantly missing time. Last season he only plays 10 games. The year before that, 15. The year before that, 9. And only 14 in his rookie year. So you have just the constant issues with availability, but even when Watson does play, then you have the volatility aspect of his game. Watson, in 5 of the 10 games that he did play last year, finished with 10 fantasy points or less. So coming in at the wide receiver 28, you've got a guy that has a really shaky history of durability, and an even shakier history with volatility when he is on the field. So, given the choice, I'd much rather have Brian Thomas, Jamison Williams, Rome Odunze, Mike Evans, Jordan Tyson, Michael Wilson. These are all guys going in that range that I would rather have than Christian Watson. Now, the two receivers going behind Christian Watson in the Green Bay depth chart, those are the two guys that I would have interest in, Matthew Golden and Jaydon Reed. With Jaydon Reed, Reed has always been an explosive, dynamic guy that's always been in kind of a limited role with the Packers. Last season, he only plays in 7 games. He deals with injuries throughout the whole season. But earlier in his career, he's been a guy that has just had a knack for big plays. The thing that fantasy managers have always wanted to see for Reed was an expanded role. And this could be the year that Green Bay does that for him, now that the receiver rotation has been shortened. Especially if Christian Watson continues to struggle staying on the field. If he gets hurt, then automatically that's going to propel Reed into a bigger role. And given Watson's history, it's a fairly safe bet to assume that he's going to miss at least some chunk of time at some point during the season. And then for Matthew Golden, Golden was extremely disappointing as a rookie. He only got 44 targets his entire rookie campaign. That's not to say it was a complete disaster. He did have a couple of flashes. There were a couple times where Jordan Love just outright missed him. But we talk a lot about how first-round picks at the wide receiver position are usually pretty good bets to make in fantasy football. Well, Golden last season was just not one of them. He finished with just under 400 yards and did not score a single touchdown. The thing for both Golden and Jaydon Reed, while I'm not overly in love with either one of them, their ADPs are both fine for what they are. For Jaydon Reed, you can get him as the wide receiver 48 right now. Matthew Golden comes in at wide receiver 55. And the case for drafting both of these guys is pretty similar. You're betting on the fact that the Green Bay Packers now have a shortened wide receiver rotation from what it's been the last couple of years. You're also going to be betting against Christian Watson staying healthy. And anytime that Watson does miss just raises the floor for both of these guys considerably. And while neither one of them is a must-have target for me, I don't mind them at all if you get them as your wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 on the back of your bench. And then at the tight end position you have Tucker Kraft. Kraft coming back from a torn ACL last season. Before he went down, Kraft was just on an absolute tear. He was well on his way to a true breakout campaign. The issue with Tucker Kraft is going to be his price. He's currently going as the tight end 5 right now. And for me, if I don't get one of the early tight ends, the Brock Bowers, Colston Loveland, Trey McBride, you can also throw Tyler Warren into that tier too. If I miss on that group, then generally I'm just going to wait and get one of the later round values, the Isaiah Likeleys, the Chigakonkwo's, the Travis Kelce's, like any of these later round guys that I love. I'd rather spend the later picks on them rather than using a mid-tier pick on Tucker Kraft. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. So with the Packers, it's all about the values that some of their skill position guys provide right now. Again, Josh Jacobs being drafted as an RB2 right now could easily outperform that and finish as an RB1. Jaydon Reed, wide receiver 48. Matthew Golden, wide receiver 55. If Christian Watson were to go down and miss a significant amount of time again, then both of those guys will have a good opportunity to outperform those ADPs. And Jordan Love and Tucker Kraft, they're not for me. I'd rather pursue other late-round quarterback options or late-round tight end options. But I thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time when we go over the Minnesota Vikings.